In the year 2000, the US Army science and technology community wanted to see if commercial gaming platforms could be used for training purposes. The reason for this was that a high percentage of incoming recruits had grown up as nerds.
Shut up!
I mean, playing video games. So there was interest to see if video games could help to enhance current training methods. So, in May 2000, a project was started within the US Army with two partners, Sony ImageWorks and Pandemic Studios. Sony ImageWorks being a VFX studio, and Pandemic Studios being game developers who would go on to create the original Star Wars Battlefront games. They wanted to use gaming consoles for this project due to their low cost when compared to PCs. However, the PlayStation 2 could not be used because there was a legal restriction on that console, that being it couldn't be used for a military purpose. But there was no restriction on the Xbox, and since it came with a hard drive, that meant that missions could be recorded to be used for an after action review. So the Xbox was chosen as the primary platform for development. But there was one thing that was required to be able to use the Xbox platform, which was a commercial release, meaning something had to be released for consumers to buy. So two versions of the game was developed, one for the US Army and one for nerds like me. The budget for the game was reportedly $5 million, with the US Army coughing up approximately $4 million using taxpayer money. That in itself isn't controversial, since I guess all the money that the US Army and the military forces get is from taxpayer money. What does make it controversial though is that the US Army never used the product that was made, which was Full Spectrum Warrior. Now, why is that? Well, there's a few reasons. First, the battle tactics that were in the game and that you actually used in the game were out of date, and the graphics were too simplistic. You might be wondering, how were the battle tactics out of date, right? Since the Army commissioned this game or project and supplied Pandemic Studios with the information they needed to make the game, such as what you would need to be able to do, how to do things, and what tactics they wanted represented in the game, since it was meant to be a training tool. On top of that, there were subject matter experts from the Army working on the game. So, did no one from the US Army just tell Pandemic when they stopped using certain tactics and started using other ones? It seems like a major oversight, considering the US Army put up $4 million for this project. The graphics, well, of course today they don't look good, and I think for 2004 when the game released, they were probably just average looking. I just find it funny though that they would complain about graphics, just because in the gaming community there's always this argument about how important graphics are to a game. Like, you have people complaining about shadows and puddles disappearing compared from original trailers to gameplay, and nearly 20 years ago, like when this project was shown to the US Army, I can just imagine the US Army when they're shown this game going up to Pandemic and saying, "What are these graphics? Is this the best you can do?" And then Pandemic just saying, "Sorry guys, this is just what we can do with the limitations of the Xbox console." And then the Army just saying, "Shut up nerds, just give us the best graphics you can, these suck." I think the argument about graphics and how important they are will always continue, right? It will just never end. Graphics, yeah, I think it really depends on the art style of the game, about how timeless the graphics are. I've been recently playing World of Warcraft Hardcore Classic, and I think the game still looks really good, considering how old that is, right? It still looks good, and there's many pixel art games which still look really nice, but it's based on art style, not graphics, right? And when the game was released, yeah, there was some controversy because it came out that the Army didn't use the game at all. You know, they funded it with $4 million, and the commercial rights to the game were all with, I think, Sony ImageWorks and Pandemic, so the Army really got nothing from it. And while the game sold close to like 1 million copies, and a sequel was made as well, Full Spectrum Warrior 10 Hammers, so Pandemic were laughing, really. It's probably surprising that there wasn't any controversy around the actual content of the game itself, with where the game is set and what you're doing. It is set in a fictional location, but still there would be people that would probably complain, but no one did. And you can still play these two games today, Full Spectrum Warrior and 10 Hammers, and the footage you're seeing now is my own footage recorded from the Steam version, and you can also play the version of the game that was made for the US Army, but I believe only if you have the Xbox version, possibly the PS2 version. If you put in this code HA2P1P19TUR5TLE, it will unlock. Now, many cheat sites out on the internet say that this code works for the PC version, but it doesn't, at least for the Steam version. But should you play the game today? Well, it is cheap on Steam and it drops further in sales, and the game does offer quite a unique tactical squad-based experience, and I think it is a pretty fun game. You control 2 different fire teams, which have 4 people in each, and the game generally revolves around suppressing the enemy with one squad while flanking with the other. You get some equipment to help you out, such as grenades, smoke grenades, and an M203 grenade launcher, but the game is an infantry-only experience, so you won't get any armor to control, but you will be coming up against armor, and sometimes you will be supported by armor. I think there's also aspects of the game that hasn't aged too well. I think the whole tutorial isn't great. It fully explains how you play the game, but I think that could be better. There's a lot of stops in gameplay, and there's manual save points which you have to move your squad up to just to save. There's no sort of checkpoint, auto save or quick save system, and I think sometimes the AI or like the pathfinding of your squad just isn't too good as well. And with the game being quite old now, nearly 20 years old, playing it on PC on modern hardware does cause some issues within the game. I was having issues with just using a mouse, like slightly moving my mouse wouldn't register any movement in game. And there were quite a few issues with sound as well. Some sounds just flat out wouldn't play, and some would be a bit crackly. There's some workarounds I've seen on the internet, but they just didn't work for me. Also some graphical issues, and sometimes enemy units would just freeze when they would die. Like sometimes they would be running, they would die, and then their body would just be frozen in place, like The Mask, right? It just looks odd. But I don't think these issues take away from the core gameplay experience. It is a good game, and as a lover of tactical turn-based like XCOM like games, like this game isn't like that, but it kind of is. I would love to see another game in this style, or even a sequel to Full Spectrum Warrior. Not a HD remaster or a remake, just give us a new game. So someone get on it. If you like this video, please give it a like, dislike if you didn't. Leave a comment down below if you've played Full Spectrum Warrior before and what you think about it. Subscribe for more, and thank you for watching.